Good afternoon, everybody. My name's JP Van Mort from ASL Allen. I'm one of the team that's involved in presenting what is now the 6th annual benchmarking webinar that shares results about really important performance metrics for wholesale nurseries in Australia. I'm joined today by my colleague Marshall Roberts, who you can see on the screen, and he'll be taking us through the process. Each year it grows, and this year we have a record 39 participants online. This is a webinar. If you have any questions or point of clarification during this hour, please just drop it in the chat line. We'll pause for questions along the way, but drop it in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it and answer all of your questions. And of course, the ones that haven't fully answered, we'll address them afterwards. The recording and the slide deck from today will be made available to you, so don't worry if you don't capture your notes on time. I'd like to start by acknowledging everybody who's involved in putting this together every year, starting, of course, with the nurseries who participate in the annual survey that actually all of these results are joined upon. Then there is Down to Earth Research, who actually undertake the market survey every year. There is Greenlife Industry Australia, who pull it all together and communicate the results. Horde Innovation, who provides the funding, and of course, Marshall, who generates the tool. Each year, Marshall, next slide, please. Each year, we take on board the feedback, we look at the tool, and we say, what can we do to make it easier to use, and how can we generate more insights out of it? So this year, Marshall's going to give us an overview of the tool. It's easier to use. It's got a better interface. We just highlight through some of the key features. It's got some new data in it. Take us through some case studies to show how you can really use it to benchmark a business and drive a performance improvement. And then we'll also talk about some of the other very important value-adding activities that occur, such as the scan that's underway at the moment of the industry overall, and the analysis is done about the contribution of the industry that was published last year. So look, we really encourage you to get involved on the chat line today. They also contact us afterwards. But to set the tone for today, I'll just go to the next slide and say what we've learned over the last 6 years is the value that you can extract from this tool is essentially represented on the screen here. It's a really good way of just having a snapshot to see how the industry is tracking. But benchmarking is benchmarking, so it allows you to compare your performance to peer businesses based upon size, so you can understand exactly how you're tracking and where you might go. And that gives you the basis to start examining specific things you might do, like how to improve your product mix, change your market segment position, things like that. So it really is a basis for continuous improvement. It can inform financial management. And also, for those of you who want to grow, really think about where are the real opportunities, and to bring that together through a technique such as SWOT, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So great tool for scanning, great tool for comparing yourself with others, but more important, it's about using data for decisions. And without any further ado, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Marshall, and he's going to take us for a walk through the tool, and there'll be pauses. And please, as always, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. Marshall, over to you. How's the weather in Perth today?
It's excellent today, JP. And thank you for the introduction, and a big welcome to everyone who's joined us online this afternoon. I would like to firstly start by presenting the tool. So this is the interface that will pop up when you open the Microsoft Excel-based benchmarking tool. It's really simple to use and user-friendly. As you would have seen in previous versions of the tool, we have around 12 categories of data presented within the tool. And this includes industry trends, risk and challenges, wages and salaries, your sales, and employment, amongst several other indicators. This year, we have some new data presented in the tool, including a summary sheet. So this will present all of your own business data that you enter into the tool on one sheet. It will also present the industry benchmarks on the same sheet, so you have a one-stop shop to see all the data. We've also got some new sentiment data, including price and factors that are contributing to pricing decisions in nursery businesses. We also have some new technology data, and the types of technology that businesses are using in their business. As always, the tool is presented across different turnover categories, so you can compare yourself against similar sized businesses or your peers. And this ranges from less than 500,000 to over 4 million in turnover. Within the tool, we also present lower, middle, and upper values, so you can compare yourself against lower benchmarks, median or average benchmarks, and higher benchmarks. To enter data within the tool, it's really simple. There are dark purple cells, and they appear throughout the various tabs within the tool. And the grey cells, they're just output cells, so no data input is required on these cells. Within the tool, we also present some industry trends, and I'm going to walk through 3 examples here. This is just to give you an overview of how the industry is tracking, and you may be able to compare your business against some of the high-level industry trends. We can see here, indicated by the dark blue lines, the latest year of data collected in the Nursery Production Survey. And across the lower axes, we see the different size of businesses. Starting on the left, the value of production over 6 years of data in the latest data collection survey, the industry was worth an estimated $3.5 billion. And as we can see, a lot of this value is being generated by larger businesses over the $4 million turnover range. In the centre, we can see the number of businesses in the industry, and we estimate there to be just over 1,600 businesses in the industry. However, around 70% of these businesses have a turnover of less than 2 million, so highly concentrated with small to medium businesses. And on the right-hand side, we can see the profitability of businesses across the turnover ranges. And this ranges from 66% at the smaller end to 90% at the large to very large business end. And these trends show that the industry has softened in the latest year, with profitability declining across most business turnover categories. Progressing to some of the applications of the tool, over the next few slides, I'm going to walk through some examples of how you may use the tool in your business. And this would just be for demonstration purposes only. And we encourage you after this session to jump into the tool and see what insights you can generate. To start, I'm going to provide some examples of how the tool works. So as previously said, we encourage you to enter the data into the dark purple cells. And here we can see we've entered our sales, our production area, our wage costs, our employment, our investment, and our water use and cost. Using these metrics, the tool automatically generates some benchmarks. And on the right-hand side, we can see that our turnover per hectare is around 0.3 million. Our wages to sales ratio is around 33%. Our sales per FTE, or full-time equivalent worker, is about $250,000. Our investment to sales ratio is 6%, and our water consumption per hectare is around 3 megalitres per hectare. So this is how the tool works behind the scenes. You enter your data and we start to generate some benchmarks or metrics to compare you to other businesses. With the first example, I've introduced here market sentiment. So this is one of the main categories within the tool. And essentially what's presented here in the dark purple column under the arrow, we can see we've answered these 5 questions. We've said that our business, our current state is steady because we're finding it difficult to expand. And this aligns with 22% of other businesses in my turnover category. Our intention for the next 5 years is to grow, which aligns with about 40% of businesses. Our feel about the future of the industry is fairly positive, which aligns with the high proportion of businesses in the industry. I think I'll be profitable next year. Yes, that aligns with most businesses. And was I profitable this year? Again, yes, at 82%. In the centre, we can see a time series of sentiment about how businesses are feeling about the future of the industry. And we can see that our 76% alignment circled there is with the majority of businesses. But we can also see over time that a feel about the future of the industry has actually declined over time, and especially since 2020. And Down to Earth Research, who conducted the survey, found that positive sentiment has been influenced by demand concerns, a slowing economy, a drying climate, unease with big box retailers, and rising input costs. So this is some of the data that you'll see within the tool in relation to market sentiment. On the same area of the tool, we've introduced pricing decisions as a new category this year. And as we can see here, over the past 2 years, the unit price of plants I sell, I've said it's increased, and this aligns with 78% of businesses. If the unit price has increased, by how much? Well, we've said 2.5%, and industry benchmarks about 5%. And now looking at factors that have influenced price, we've answered supply chain challenges, which aligns with 17% of other businesses. But we can see the data is suggesting that production costs and inflation are actually having a large impact on businesses in this turnover category. And our concern with the supply chain challenges is a less common factor contributing to price increases. Progressing to the second example, this is value of sales or turnover of my business. These are two common figures you'll see within the benchmarking tool. Starting on the left, where we've entered our sales data and we're positioned within middle values, which means we align with a majority of other businesses in this turnover category, but we're slightly towards the higher end at about $1.3 million. The second figure shows the trend of my sales over time. And we can see an increase between 2018 and 2021. However, our sales have slowed over the last 2 years and have declined from around 1.3 to $1.2 million. And this may be for several reasons. It may be from coming off the highs of COVID-19 or just a slowing in demand over this time. So these are the businesses within your turnover category that you'll be comparing yourself against later in the tool. And we can see we can compare ourselves over time against a lower, a middle, and a higher bound. The third example is wages to sales ratio. And starting on the left, we can see where our wage costs around 30% of our sales. The wages to sales is a productivity measure. Essentially, for every dollar of wages paid to our staff, what's the return in terms of sales in my business? So we can see that businesses lie between around 30 and 50% in terms of wages to sales ratio. However, we do see some businesses at the higher end exceeding 100%, but also at the lower end around 20%. In the centre, we can see our trend in our wages to sales ratio over time. And we can see that this has declined, highlighted by the blue line, from around high 30% to around 30% in 2021. And then over the last 2 years, it has increased slightly, but it is below the industry trend, highlighted by the grey, the median line, which has trended up to around 40%. We can see some businesses in this category have a ratio of above 50%, and we can see some increases over the last few years, signalling higher wage costs or perhaps people are employing more people in their business. So I guess while this ratio can be a lower ratio can be a good sign in this example, you may need to consider other factors such as employee satisfaction, employee turnover rates, and product service quality. We may also have some businesses that rely on technology and automation, which reduces the need for a large workforce, and therefore may keep this ratio lower. So you need to consider your own circumstances when interpreting the results, and whether you can meet your employee needs. Continuing on with this example is employment, which is measured in a full-time equivalent data. So this reflects how many full-time equivalent workers you have in your business. And we can see that most businesses in this turnover category have a FTE count between 5 and 10. And we can see that the data we've entered places us at the lower end of the middle values. So again, this is a positive sign. We're not employing too many people, and we're about average to the lower end compared to our peer businesses. Over time, we can see that the median level of employment in this turnover category has remained just over 6, and you can compare that to our own data, which has trended between 5 and 6, and is currently at 5. So this tells me that I employ slightly less than the industry average or the median. We can see that some businesses have up to 10 FTEs, whereas others have around 4 at the lower end. When interpreting these results, it could be a positive sign that we have a lower FTE count compared to our other businesses. So our labour is very efficient. However, this may reflect a scenario where I'm unable to source enough labour for my business, and we may actually have labour shortages. So again, it's down to your personal circumstances to interpret these benchmarks. Yeah, that's the end of the employment example. The fourth example we're going to look at is business investment and also infrastructure. So the tool enables you to compare how you, in terms of your investment in infrastructure, technology, training and education against similar sized businesses. So we can see here on the left that around 40% of businesses invested in new infrastructure, 20% invested in new technology, around a quarter invested in training and education, and interestingly, 44% didn't invest in 22-23 year. In the centre, we can see that our investment of around 50,000 was average for businesses in this turnover category, but towards the lower end. You can see that on average, businesses invested between around 20,000 to 150,000. But we also had some businesses that invested over 500,000. And at the lower end, some businesses that didn't invest at all in infrastructure. In terms of technology, there's some new data in this year's tool relating to the use of technology. As we can see here, the most commonly used types of technology included automated irrigation control, potting machines, and barcode or QR code tracking systems. Automated climate control, automated data collection, and seeding machines were also used by about 10 to 20% of businesses. Towards the bottom, we can see that 12% didn't invest in technology. So around 1 in 10 businesses don't use any form of technology. In the centre, we can see that our investment in technology of around 25,000 was typical for businesses in this turnover category. But we can see that some businesses heavily invested in technology, up to around $300,000. So when interpreting these results, you have to consider, I guess, how much you've invested in technology in the last few years. You may not invest as much this year compared to last year because you invested more last year. So this is just designed to benchmark yourself and see how much others are investing in technology and infrastructure. So to bring it all together, feedback from previous years has called for simpler ways to present results and benchmarks within the tool. So this year we've designed a summary sheet which brings together all the data you enter, but also all the metrics and benchmarks across the other turnover sizes within the industry. Here we present the summary sheet. They may look like there's a lot on the screen, but I'm going to step through a few key components of the summary sheet. If there's one component of the tool that I encourage you to use, it is the summary sheet. Labelled by item 1, we can change the data displayed to present median values, which I'd encourage you to use as a good comparison against industry. You can also change this to average or lower or upper values as well, if you'd like to see how you compare to higher or lower performing businesses. Item 2, we can see that is our data. So this will automatically flow through when you enter your data across the various other aspects of the tool. So there's no need to enter any data here. It all is automated. Item 3, towards the top right, we can see the turnover range of businesses. This ranges from less than 500,000 across to over 4 million in turnover. We also present the industry-wide values here in that column. Item 4, you can see we have 21 items starting from headline benchmarks, and these are all presented on a per business basis. So you can see this ranges from value of sales to operating expenditure and employment, our production area, our investment, and our water. Below this, we have some operating ratios. And this includes proportion of sales to big box retailers, some performance metrics such as wages to sales, which we've seen, turnover per full-time equivalent worker, turnover per hectare, and our water consumption per hectare, amongst some other metrics presented there. So the intention of this sheet is to pull everything together, present all your information on one page, and then you can essentially, by going across the screen, you can compare how your data is benchmarked against your peers. I'm just going to quickly walk through how you might apply the summary sheet in your business. So here we can see that our data is presented in the first column, surrounded by a box. And I've looked at here at 6 metrics. So starting with production area, we can see that our business had a production area of 3.7 hectares, and this compares to industry at 1.8 and our peers at 1.7. So this implies that we have a relatively higher production area compared to other businesses in the industry. Secondly, our water expenditure. We can see that we had a water expenditure of $17,000 in the year. And this compares to our peers at around $7,000. So this is high, more than double the industry average and our peer value. But just keep in mind that this includes maintenance. So if we had a large maintenance bill in this year, that it may impact this metric. Thirdly, we can see wages as a share of sales at 33%. And going across the screen, we can see this compares to our peers at around 40% wages to sales. So this is a positive sign, just highlighting that our wages to sales is competitive, but taking in mind, have we met our employer requirements and other factors relating to our employment. Fourthly is our turnover per full-time equivalent worker. The tool generates a value of 250,000 per FTE. And you can see that this is relatively high compared to industry and also our peers at 162,000. So this is showing that our employees are generating a relatively high level of sales or turnover per worker. The fifth item is turnover per hectare. So our value of 337,000 compares to an industry average of 577, and similarly 578,000 are similar sized businesses. So we can see that our turnover per hectare is low, but I guess going back to the first item above, where our production area was relatively high, they may be two linking factors that should be considered. And finally, our unit cost of water at $1,568 per megalitre. Again, this appears very high, so we may need to review our cost of water, but also consider, have we had a large maintenance bill in this year? So these are some of the ways you may use the summary sheet in your business strategy, or when you're reviewing various things like cost, your employment, and your investments. The tool won't highlight metrics where you've performed relatively weakly or stronger. It'll be up to your business to interpret the results based off your unique circumstances and various factors that may be unique to your business, which may be contributing to the results. So it's designed to present everything on one page and allow you to compare. We've got 21 metrics here, so we're hoping you can find several that are highly relevant to your business. So that concludes the demonstration of the tool and some of the applications. Hopefully it's all makes sense, and you can see how user-friendly the tool is and easy to interpret the results. If you'd like a copy of the benchmarking tool, please reach out to Greenlife Industry Australia at the following link, and you'll be sent a Microsoft Excel benchmarking tool. If you need any assistance or have any queries, please feel free to reach out to Jan Paul or myself. Our contact details will be at the end of this presentation, and we'll be happy to walk you through the applications and any queries you may have. So if I bring JP back, have we had any questions? JP may be on mute, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Marshall.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And we have got a couple of questions. So the first one was, somebody said, where can I get the tool from? Celeste Cook from Greenlife Industry, she has put her email in the chat line. So just drop her a line and she'll send out a tool. It's available to all levy payers. Marshall, I was struck about what you said today. Is one of the questions that people often ask of this is what happens if I haven't got all the data to benchmark myself against? Is that okay? How do I use the tool?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. As I showed, there's a lot of data presented in the summary sheet, so you can simply use that sheet in your business. You can print it off, stick it on the wall. There's various metrics in there that you can use over time in your business. You can also enter just the latest year of data. If you wish to enter the 2022-2023 data, that's perfectly fine. You won't generate, I guess, the time series and the trends within the charts I displayed earlier, but you can simply jump in, enter, several data points, and the tool will generate some metrics, but perhaps not all metrics presented in the summary sheet. So yeah, there's various ways to use it if you don't have every data point.
Great. Thank you, Marshall. And remember, if anybody's got a question, please drop it into the chat. So another question, Marshall, is do I need special software?
So all you need is Microsoft Excel. It's highly user friendly. It's simple to use, so you don't need special software as long as you can use an open Microsoft Excel application. It should be available to everyone.
And we've had two more questions come up while you're while you've been answering that question, Marshall. The first one is from Ian Firth. Thank you, Ian. It says, is it possible to get the tool earlier? I note that we're working with last year's data and much has changed. The answer is we try and get it out as early as possible every year. We are a couple of months later this year just due to some issues that are lying around the place, but generally this is something that the collection occurs in spring. It's processed over summer for a release in autumn. We've gone for an early winter release this year, but next year the intention is to produce it in autumn, and we'll take that feedback on board, Ian, and we'll aim for as early a release in autumn as we can actually manage. Just the process takes time. So I see a thumbs up from Ian there. And then Matt Parker, are you making this recording available? The answer is yes. And I presume I won't presume, I will promise that we will send out a link to the recording to everybody who's attended the webinar today. And it will also be available via the Greenlife Industry Australia website. Now, so we have a question here from Lisa Passmore. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, Marshall and Jan. I'm listening from an industry association point of view, and I'm interested in overarching trends. You mentioned the impacts of costs and inflation, cost of living pressures too. What other trends are you seeing in the data, please?
Well, that's a very good question. As I guess I touched on, we've seen a softening of sentiment and positive sentiment about the future, and this is being impacted by demand concerns, rising input costs, inflation, supply chain challenges seems to be a persistent issue, and within the tool, which is something I didn't touch on today, but there's a range of risk factors, including biosecurity concerns or risks, labour shortages, water, and various other factors that are emerging, if not persisting over the last several years.
I think the other thing that we're observing is that overall the industry is strong, but it's gone through a growth period and now it's settled. There's nothing to say that the industry is shrinking at the moment, but it has gone through a growth and we've reached a level. And I think that's a sign of two things. One is that the data is settling, because when you do these long time series sort of analyses of industries, it takes a while, and we're into collection number 6. By the time this project finishes, we'll be close to a decade worth. So we truly understand the shape of the industry then, particularly having gone through a few shocks. The other one is, business, goes through cycles, and clearly it looks like we've hit a stage here. The other thing that we've seen, which relates to another question that Ian has asked, which is that we seem to be seeing more larger businesses and a reduction in the number of smaller businesses. So there's a bit of structural adjustment in the business size, and that's going on. The answer, and then which flows on to a question that Ian's asked. He says, how many businesses have contributed to the data, especially in each category? So I'm presuming by category you mean revenue size. Now, we have Dan Watson online today. I haven't got the exact numbers, but basically we got, I think, close to or just over 300 responses last year. And that is enough to make sure that we have enough in each category to have a statistically reliable sample. And one of the things we always do is make sure that each category we report out, we have a large enough response rate and that we collect things on a randomized basis. So we take out and control for bias in the process, and they're accurate. So they're as confident as we can be to about the 95th percentile, for those of you who are interested in statistics. One of the things that some of you may be interested in, that in the interest of time we didn't do today, was there are quite a lot of detail on the different types of plant sale categories and things like that. And that's, we could spend a whole hour on that in our own right, but I really encourage you to go and have a look at that, how the market segments and channel structures are organised.
Yep.
Time for a last question, or we'll go into the next thing about saying what else are we doing with the data and what else is coming. All right, Marshall. Looks like thank you very much for your presentation. Excellent as always. Shall we go on to the next slide, please?
Go on.
So, look, this is a data project for decisions that's based upon real data from industry. So every year we say what data would be valuable for the industry to collect. So what we'd like you to do now with the 42 people that are online is grab your phone and scan the QR code that's there. Don't worry, we've got lots of time. And we're just going to ask you a question you've seen a snapshot. Some of you have used the data benchmarking tool over many years. We really would like you to just brainstorm, put in anything so we can take it on board in the design of next year's collection and next year's benchmarking tool. What other data would you like to have to help make decisions in your business and for the industry? Am I allowed to answer the survey, Marshall, or am I too?
Yes, I think you can.
How's the response rate going there, Marshall?
We're starting to come through now. 5 responses.
So people would like things on wastes, on risks.
Seeing some more coming through now.
We don't need a bigger screen, Marshall. This is excellent. Please keep the submissions coming in. We've got 24 responses. I think we'll just be good to have a few more.
Oh,
we're up to 30. Fantastic.
Interesting that pricing is coming through. It was a new edition of last year's survey process about factors impacting pricing decisions and how much prices are going up.
And waste is so the size of the letter, by the way, is related to how many times people have mentioned it. So waste is obviously very big at the moment. It's the largest word. So we're at 35 responses. Marshall, could you? That's getting way too small for my eyes. Do you want to just give us a summary of what people have talked about?
Yes, so you see waste in the centre. Input costs, seems to be some themes with input costs, and pest management and pesticide use. So yeah, some really interesting trends. And probably lastly, the thing I can see is ESG, emissions. Yeah, so some really a breadth of items in there to consider for future data collection.
And I also saw freight costs come through there, Marshall.
Mm.
So look, we've had 41 responses, which is fantastic. We'll close this poll off now, and thank you very much. So just letting you know what's happening with your survey responses here. So we do a review of the benchmarking tool, and we do a review of the survey that we deploy, and we sit down in about August and we say, what are we going to add? What are we going to change into the survey? That's a process we do with Hort Innovation, with Greenlife Industry Association, with Down to Earth Research and the Industry Reference Group. And we sit down and we design it. And as we also always work very much on designing a survey that people can respond with. And so we work on, you can now submit it online via Excel, which is still phone-based for people. So this is an important input into that design. And certainly there are a number of things that we'll take on board. And just based upon the word cloud, waste is obviously the biggest one that's there. So thank you very much. Marshall, next slide, please. So this relates to some of the work. This is a report that we published last year. It was called the EC, or Economic Contribution Analysis. And this was really looking at what the contribution that the wholesale nursery industry makes to Australia, the Australian economy. It was published last winter. It's available on the Greenlife Industry website. It's got a whole bunch of useful information on it. It's a great resource for policy. It's a great resource to think about what the industry does just beyond the nursery itself. We also had an opportunity to join it up with some broader analysis that was commissioned by Hort Innovation on the contribution of the hort sector overall, and we joined that data set together. And from that we worked out that basically the industry, its contribution beyond is about $2.78 billion. We used a census here because there's a lot of data around. There's 2,500. We have a trajectory in how the industry is going to grow towards 2030, and that beyond that sort of, what they call the farm gate value, which is the $2.8 billion, there's an additional $2.5 billion, which is called gross value add, flowing on inside of that. We had a webinar on that. That's available as well, but this is available on the Greenlife Industry website. It's full of really good facts. That's very useful. It gives you a comparison against other horticultural sectors, some state breakdowns, and there's a really fantastic resource. So we're just reminding you that that's available, and also that it's based upon the same data that the benchmarking tool is built on. Also, just to remind people, if you want a copy of the tool, Celeste has put in the link to where you can get it from the Greenlife Industry website. Next slide, please, Marshall. Oh, and here's an example. of where the analysis has been done by joining the Horde innovation data together with this project data to say here's a high, medium and low trajectory for the industry and how it goes towards what we think the value of the industry and the employment predictions are or estimates are for the industry to 2030. It's done as a series of ranges, so it could go up, it could go down, and that's part of thinking about your own business, but also policy settings and support around the industry is what's going to help us maintain a stronger trajectory versus how do we defend against the risk of things going into the lower end of what's there. Next slide, please, Marshall. Okay, next steps. So we have the tool, we have today's website. The most immediate thing is we're going to release an update of a report that was done during COVID, which is called a PESTLE scan, which is a bit of technical jargon for an environmental scan about all the drivers that are influencing the industry. So Lisa's question, what's the trends? What do they really mean? We're going to give you a bit more detail on that in a second. Then in spring, we will see the annual survey out there, and some of you may be rung up by market metrics, or you have the opportunity to just send in your survey results online, and then that will be compiled and processed by Down to Earth Research, and then we will look at it, publish the annual update, and release the benchmarking tool next autumn. So production continues on, and we'll have another year, and we'll answer Ian's questions about, well, things have changed a lot. We will understand how things change. But I'd like to draw your attention to the PESTLE scan. And just go to the next slide. One of the things about doing a scan of an industry is it's really important to understand what people think. So I have my colleague Brendan Ackland here, who some of you may know from the past. Now, he's actually undertaking this PESTLE scan as we're talking right now. He's busy writing the report, and we had a focus group meeting a couple of weeks ago around it. And we just want to run a poll, just like we ran a poll on what we do with the tool. We want you to identify where you see some of these issues coming on board. Now, just to shape it up, we know that cost and inflationary and supply chain constraint issues are a deep concern, not only in nursery, but across the economy. So we've taken them as given, and we've had a good look at those. So instead, we've used the horticultural sector sustainability framework and saying, what do you think is going to be the most important drivers out of the big 4 themes? And I'll just explain each of the 4 themes, and then we'd like you to rank them. The first one is nurture and nourish, and this is really about the role that Greenlife plays in healthy and nutritious food, and about the safety of the product, the traceability and the quality of the plants that we produce. Then there's people and enterprise. We have production, profitable growers, human rights, safe workforce, diversity and capability, good governance systems, and thriving communities. We have climate and waste, which is about emissions reductions, energy futures, climate adaptation, food waste, and waste in general. And then we have planet resources, so that's sustainable practices, water, biodiversity, pollinators, biosecurity, and of course, pest and disease management. So I saw some answers popping up there. Are people filling out the questionnaire, Marshall?
Yes, yes, we've got a few coming through. I've just hidden the results for a second, but
okay, cool. All right, so people aren't biased in their responses. Yeah. So
we're up to 10 responses.
We still have 36 online, so we'll aim for 30 responses.
Okay, we're up to 14 responses.
In the meantime, in the chat line, so Celeste has put in the access to Greenlife Industry Association's YouTube channel. So There's a whole bunch of resources out there, and this is where today's webinar will be as well, and previous communications that have been done around the EC and a whole range of different things, and other all the activities that are undertaken for industry.
Okay, we've exceeded 20 responses. I'll do the big reveal.
So people and enterprise come in at number 1 by a whisker over planet and resources. Climate and water are number 3, and nourish and nurture. But again, all 4 of these domains have scored quite highly. Like, you wouldn't say that, I mean, there's 2 clearly that have been rated higher and 2 that have been ranked lower, which is very similar to what we found in the focus group 2 weeks ago as well. So everything's important, which is, I think, highlights a lot of what businesses are finding, not just in nursery, but across all sectors, is that there's a lot going on, and priority setting becomes quite important, and to recognise that different people are setting different priorities as a consequence. All right, so thank you for responding to that poll. That's been very useful. I'm sure you're deeply appreciative, Brendan.
Yeah, now I know that I'm on YouTube. I didn't expect that.
Next slide, please, Marshall. So, look, this is just to remind you that that this is an ongoing project. It's supported by the Horde Innovations Nursery Fund. It's undertaken in partnership between Greenlife Industry Association, Down to Earth, and ACEL Allen. Marshall and I are available to answer any question. Our contact details are there. To remind you also, if you've got a final question, put it into the chat line now, because we have a little bit of time left. But I'll remind you of the 3 key points. The tool is there, use it. It's a great resource. You can't break it. I think the summary sheet is a great addition because it pulls everything together. But but also don't be confronted by it. Just grab something and drill it out and understand it, what it means, because it is just a benchmark. It's not an instruction. The final one is that we're always looking at how to add more value to it, and Brendan is busy writing the PESTLE scan, and that will be released in August. So that we have your contact details, and we'll be doing some communications around that, and obviously send you out a version. So just calling for a final question. Going once, twice, 3 times. Just a thank you from Lisa. And I would like to say thank you to everybody. Thanks for your time. Happy benchmarking, everybody, and take care. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Good afternoon. Great.
Here we go.